"Pull over, now!" barked Officer Trenton into his patrol mic, already narrowing his eyes at the black sedan ahead. Inside, a poised black woman in a tailored blazer slowly pulled to the shoulder, her expression unreadable. Trenton approached, with purpose, chest puffed, hand near his holster. "License and registration," he demanded. She offered a calm nod, reaching for her purse with deliberate care. He squinted at her face, then glanced over her documents, eyes twitching with suspicion. "You sure this is yours?" he asked coldly. She met his gaze. "Officer, I believe there's a misunderstanding." Trenton scoffed, already convinced she was hiding something. But what no one on that road knew, not even Trenton, was that the woman he was trying to intimidate wasn't just a driver. She was his boss. As we delve into the story, if you believe everyone should be treated with respect no matter what their color is, click subscribe now and tell us where you're watching from. This story serves the kind of instant karma you won't believe, and it's the best one you'll hear all year. Kamari Hayes learned early that silence could be louder than anger. Raised in the low-income corridors of South Oakbridge, she watched her mother work 2 jobs and still be overlooked at the bank, at the grocery store, at traffic stops. But the moment that shaped Kamari came when her older brother, just a teen, was dragged from a sidewalk and accused of breaking into a store he had just exited. No apology ever came, and Kamari never forgot the look in his eyes. Rage swallowed by powerlessness. That day she didn't promise revenge, she promised transformation. Years later, Kamari earned her stripes not through bravado, but by building bridges between law and community, reform and tradition. She rose through the ranks as the quiet mind in noisy rooms, the calm presence during chaotic calls. And when she became Oakbridge's first black female police captain, she didn't flaunt it, she carried it like armor. Now, she audits officers anonymously, evaluating the very patterns that nearly erased her family. Officer Trenton, meanwhile, walks the beat like he owns it. 20 years deep into the force, he speaks in clipped commands and measures compliance. By skin tone. He doesn't see himself as racist, just experienced. He brags about instincts, but what he really means is bias. He has been praised for his arrest numbers, but those numbers have stories, ones he never stops to listen to. To Trenton, policing is control, and control looks a certain way, dresses a certain way, speaks a certain way, and when it doesn't, he flips the script. His authority is built on pattern, not principle. Earlier that morning, Trenton let a young white man off with no registration and a busted taillight. "Just get that fixed," he'd said with a wink. 15 minutes later, he pulled over a black woman for a full stop at a stop sign, claiming she rolled through. Now, Kamari sits silently in her BMW, watching him watch her. No name badge, no rank, just presence. The very thing Trenton overlooks. He doesn't know who she is yet, but he will. Have you ever felt misjudged before people even knew who you were? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe true power doesn't always need to speak first. Trenton tapped the roof of the BMW with a little more force than necessary, the sound sharp against the quiet street. "You people always have some story, don't you?" he muttered, pretending to study her license while his tone dripped with entitlement. Rules are rules. It was the phrase he used like armor, neutral on the surface, but weaponized by intent. For Trenton, policy wasn't about justice, it was about obedience. And in his worldview, a black woman in a luxury vehicle parked in a white neighborhood needed to justify her existence. "You shouldn't be driving this far from town," he added, drawing out each word like an accusation. "This area's mostly residential." Kamari turned her head slowly, expression neutral, eyebrow lifting with quiet amusement. "Is that against the law?" she asked, her voice velvet smooth. It wasn't defensive, but it didn't yield. The subtle pushback irritated him. It suggested she wasn't afraid. Across the street, 2 dog walkers slowed, their conversations tapering off. A jogger stopped at the corner, pretending to stretch while sneaking glances at the scene. There was no shouting, no chaos, just something electric in the air. The kind of stillness that warned of something building. From the sidewalk, a whisper. Probably another social media stunt, someone murmured. She's too calm, like she wants attention. Another replied, bet she's one of those activists, just wants to go viral. None of them knew who she was. That's what made it worse. Trenton stepped closer. If you don't comply fully, I'll escalate this stop, he said sharply. His hand hovered near his radio, thumb twitching. Not quite a threat, just close enough to feel like one. Kamari didn't move. She didn't need to. Power was already shifting. Across the street, a young woman hesitated. Her phone in hand, thumb hovered over the record button. Her instincts told her something was wrong, but she wasn't sure if she should act. Not yet. Kamari looked directly at Trenton. Think carefully about what you're doing, she said. No anger, just presence. For the first time, his confidence cracked. He didn't know why, but something about her unsettled him. What would you do if someone challenged you publicly based only on assumption? Drop your response in the comments, and if you think calm confidence is more powerful than loud resistance, hit like and subscribe. You were warned, Trenton snapped, loud enough to make nearby birds scatter from a power line. His voice, once smug and under control, now cracked with something raw. Rage, or maybe fear. He pulled out his citation pad like a weapon, flipping pages with theatrical aggression. Step out of the vehicle, he demanded. His face was flushed now, the tension in his jaw matching the tremble in his hand. But beneath the surface, something in him was unraveling. He could feel it, and he didn't know why. Kamari didn't move, not a twitch. The world seemed to pause with her, air stagnant, the sun caught just behind the clouds. The woman with the phone across the street clutched it tighter, her finger hovering over the record button. A breeze passed, light and nervous, like it didn't want to disturb what was coming next. I haven't violated any law, Kamari said, her voice unflinching. Her gaze stayed locked on Trenton's, level and unmoved. And unless you can articulate a clear reason for your request, I'll remain in my vehicle. She spoke with courtroom precision, measured, composed, complete. There was no panic, only presence. Without drawing attention, Kamari's right hand pressed gently beneath the steering column. Click. A silent beacon was sent to internal dispatch. No flashing lights, no sirens, just a signal, the kind that didn't need noise to make an impact. The young woman with the phone swallowed hard. Her heart pounded, but her resolve settled. She tapped the screen. A red recording light appeared. It was official now. A witness had chosen to see, chosen to remember. Across the street, at a shaded sidewalk cafe, two older men leaned back in their chairs. Looks like another one of those watch me go viral moments, one muttered. The other smirked. If she's innocent, why all the attitude? But not everyone agreed. A nurse in scrubs, sipping iced tea beside them, murmured, She's not the problem. He is. Just watch his eyes. Kamari said nothing to the latest command. Her silence wasn't defiance. It was dominance. It made Trenton blink, then twitch. He shifted his weight like the ground was suddenly unfamiliar beneath his boots. Mom, called a soft voice from the curb. Are you okay? It was the woman with the phone, gentle, firm, human. It broke the bubble. The moment wasn't just between cop and civilian anymore. It had become communal. Trenton snapped toward her. Mind your business. This is official police matter. His face was red now, his control cracking visibly. He turned back to Kamari, his jaw set. This is your final chance. Step out now, or I will remove you myself. From cars stopped at a red light, heads turned. Windows rolled down. Phones lifted. Maybe she's live streaming. Someone scoffed from the sidewalk. trying to be a hero. You heard the officer. Another said, "She's obviously hiding something. She's making it worse," came a third voice. "Entitled," a fourth muttered, as if that single word explained everything. Kamari opened her mouth, but hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the ID badge tucked discreetly beside her gearshift. Not yet. She wanted him to decide. She needed the full picture first. "If you need support," the woman filming said again, quieter now, "just say the word." "We see you." Trenton slammed his citation book shut with a snap that startled even the second officer now standing behind him. "This isn't a debate," he growled. "You either comply or this escalates." Then came the final insult. The second officer, Officer Davis, sauntered up, Starbucks tray in hand. "Got your usual," he said with a chuckle, handing Trenton an iced drink. Davis glanced briefly at Kamari, then looked away like she didn't exist. He sipped. Trenton sipped, and not a single gesture was made toward the woman sweltering in. The heat, engine humming, tension rising. Kamari remained still, her fingers relaxed on the steering wheel, her breath steady. But her eyes, they were watching everything. Would you stay calm or speak out when the world turns silent around you? Comment below. If this chapter made your heart race, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who knows what quiet strength looks like. Trenton stormed, back toward the driver's side door, his boots pounding against the asphalt with the rhythm of boiling blood. His jaw was locked tight, lips pressed into a line. Without warning, he grabbed the door handle and yanked, locked. He knocked, hard, twice. The sound echoed like gunshots against the tension-heavy air. "Open the door. Now," he hissed, face inches from the glass. Kamari didn't flinch. Her eyes didn't even blink. That stillness provoked him more than any defiance could. He leaned in closer, his breath fogging the glass. "Playing games won't save you." Then, smack. His palm hit the window so hard that even he blinked. The crack of it startled everyone, including himself. The second officer stepped up, watching, from a few feet away. Trenton raised his voice for the crowd now gathering. "She's non-compliant," he declared, loud and self-righteous. "Next time, ma'am, try parking where you actually belong. This isn't some free-for-all neighborhood." Kamari turned her head toward him for the first time, slowly, deliberately. Their eyes locked. "I've asked for nothing more than to be treated lawfully," she said. Her voice didn't rise, but it landed like a verdict. Unshaken, unbothered, but undeniable. "You think you're special?" Trenton barked. "You think you're above the law?" He kicked the front tire hard enough to shake the frame. A distant car alarm wailed in sympathy, but the street had gone too quiet to mask it. Phones were up. Children gasped. Mothers pulled them close. Kamari leaned forward. "You just made a mistake you'll regret." Her voice was calm, but it froze him where he stood. When someone stays calm under pressure, do you think it's weakness or strategy? Comment with your take. And if you feel the shift coming, hit like and subscribe to stay ahead of the reveal. Kamari slowly rolled her window down halfway. The movement was deliberate, not submissive, measured like a verdict being delivered. Her eyes never left Trenton's. "Enough," she said, her tone even and quiet, but with the gravity of someone who had just drawn a line in stone. "I've tolerated your misconduct long enough." She didn't shout, didn't flinch, but the words rippled through the air like the crack of thunder just before the storm. The bystanders didn't speak, but their faces began to shift. Something was changing. Trenton's posture faltered. He blinked, then puffed out his chest again like a cornered animal, pretending it wasn't afraid. "You're the one escalating this," he snapped. "I'm following protocol. You're the one acting suspicious." But his words were falling flat now, tired echoes of a script he no longer believed. Even his voice cracked on the last syllable. He wasn't in control anymore. and he could feel it slipping. The energy in the street shifted like a dropped curtain. The heat, the silence, the eyes, it all began to press inward. Kamari didn't respond. She simply let the moment sit, let him stew in the hollowness of his power. Her silence became its own kind of indictment, one stronger than shouting, one he couldn't shout over. 3 blocks away, a black SUV turned the corner with the slow, intentional crawl of something planned but unannounced. It didn't flash lights. It didn't need to. Inside sat a senior officer Kamari had personally mentored, a man whose loyalty wasn't to her badge, but to her integrity. He had received the alert. Now he was on site, quietly, precisely. Trenton's instincts finally sparked. He looked around, suddenly aware of the stillness. Something wasn't right. His eyes darted toward the rearview mirror of Kamari's car, then toward the bystanders, then to the oncoming SUV. "Who did you call?" he blurted. His voice carried panic disguised as accusation. Kamari's gaze flicked to her own mirror, then back at him. "I haven't made any calls," she replied, her voice cool. It was true. She hadn't, but she didn't need to. The woman with the phone, now at the edge of the sidewalk, mouthed, "I'm with you." Others followed. A man stepped out of his car, resting his hands on the roof. Another lowered his phone from his ear and started recording. The line between passive and present was thinning. "This isn't about a citation," Kamari said. Her words were unhurried. "It's about how you see people. You made assumptions, and now instead of admitting you were wrong, you're doubling down on them." The street held still. Even Trenton's partner didn't speak. Then Trenton's mask cracked. "Some people just don't belong in certain neighborhoods," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. But it was loud enough. The phone's microphone caught every word. The woman holding it gasped. So did someone else nearby. There was no saving that sentence. For the first time, the second officer took a step back. Not out of loyalty, but distance, disassociation. He saw what everyone else saw now. This wasn't about law. It never had been. The crowd didn't erupt. No one shouted. Instead, the silence grew heavy, like the sky right before it rains. All eyes turned to Kamari. "You're right," she said finally, folding her hands on the wheel. "Actions do have consequences." Just then, the black SUV came to a complete stop behind Trenton's cruiser. The driver's side door opened. One polished shoe touched the pavement, but the camera didn't yet catch the person's face. Not yet. When someone stays calm under pressure, do you think it's weakness or strategy? Comment with your take, and hit like and subscribe. The street held its breath. Engines idled in place, phones stayed lifted, and no one dared speak. Trenton shifted uneasily, tugging at his belt as if it could brace him against what was coming. Even the birds seemed to still. The SUV door closed with a quiet finality, and a pair of polished black shoes stepped into view, steady and sure. Inside the BMW, Kamari calmly lifted her phone and placed it on the dash, lens forward. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Trenton's voice cracked through the silence. "What exactly are you doing?" His earlier bravado had vanished, replaced by a tremble of dread. Kamari's gaze didn't waver. "You'll understand soon enough," she said. Her tone was soft, but it carried the weight of justice. In that moment, the silence didn't just hold power, it became it. If you felt the energy shift in this scene, hit like, and don't. Forget to subscribe if you believe silence can be stronger than shouting. From the edge of the crowd, someone whispered, "Something's happening." Heads swiveled as the man in the tailored uniform stepped forward, his shoes cutting a precise rhythm across the pavement. "Did you notice how calm she stayed through all of this?" Another murmured, eyes wide with realization. The energy in the street shifted from tense curiosity to reverence. What had been just another roadside scene was no longer ordinary. The young woman filming instinctively stepped closer, her phone trembling in her grip. She hadn't planned on being a part of history that day, but something inside her stirred. It wasn't just the appearance of the man in uniform, it was the stillness around the woman in the car. Kamari hadn't said much, she hadn't needed to, but now, the silence she had commanded was about to be echoed by something bigger. From the black SUV stepped Deputy Chief Alan Serrano, broad-shouldered, salt at his temples, and a sharp crease in his uniform. His presence alone parted the atmosphere. No one had expected to see a ranking officer here. He gave Kamari a respectful nod before turning to Trenton. His eyes narrowed with intent. "Status of this stop?" he asked calmly. Trenton swallowed hard. "Routine, possible ID issue," he mumbled. "Incorrect," Serrano replied without missing a beat. "This individual has full jurisdiction over your precinct. She's not a civilian. She's Captain Kamari Hayes, your commanding officer." The sentence was delivered with the force of a gavel. Every syllable landed like thunder. Gasps rippled. "Oh my God," someone breathed. "That's her. I read about her, Oakbridge's youngest police captain." Heads turned. Phones shot up like arrows. The story had changed, and the whole world wanted to capture it. Kamari stepped out of her car slowly, gracefully, lifting her badge for all to see. Her tone was calm, but clear. "I prefer to lead from the ground," she said. "Because how you treat strangers tells me everything I need to know about your leadership." The street hung on her words. Even the air listened. Trenton's complexion drained to a dull, ghostly shade. "Captain, I didn't realize," he stammered, his voice brittle and collapsing under the weight of his mistake. He looked around like he might wake up and this would be gone. But the cameras were still up, and the consequences were arriving. "We're halting all active patrols under Officer Trenton's supervision," Serrano announced loudly. "Effective immediately. An investigation is being launched on the spot." The declaration drew murmurs and nods from the crowd. Some crossed their arms. Others whispered, "It's about time." Kamari didn't respond. She didn't nod. She didn't gloat. She let the silence speak. And in that moment, it roared louder than anything else could. Two internal affairs officers emerged from the SUV. One held a tablet, the other a radio. "We've received the footage. Instructions have been distributed," said the lead investigator with professional calm. Behind him, another officer collected body cam evidence from Trenton's patrol car. Kamari turned to face Trenton directly. "You chose to lead with ego, to enforce by profile. That ends here." Her voice remained composed, her back straight, her tone final. A single clap rang out, then another. The crowd's applause grew, like rainfall. Some clapped in relief, some in solidarity, others in sheer awe. One by one, they gave her what Trenton had refused: respect. "You assumed I was less because of how I looked," Kamari said, now addressing both Trenton and the street. "Now the entire department will see what that assumption costs." Her words weren't angry. They were deliberate, and heavier than any accusation. Trenton looked around, searching for backup, but none came. His partner, the same one who had brought him coffee earlier, had slipped behind the SUV, out of frame, out of loyalty. No one would stand beside him now. In desperation, Trenton moved toward his cruiser. If he could just drive off, maybe he could control the story. Maybe he could reshape it before it was too late. "Please remain where you are," one of the internal affairs officers said, stepping into his path. The command was firm. Undeniable. "You're suspended," Serrano said flatly. "Effective. Immediately. Badge, weapon, and cruiser now." Trenton looked like he might collapse. His body slumped as he handed over his equipment with shaking hands. "You'll be cooperating with both Internal Affairs and the Civil Oversight Board," the investigator added. "This will be a transparent review." He lifted the body cam, footage into a secure bag. "Chain of evidence begins now," Trenton's voice cracked. "Captain Hayes, this was never personal. It came out broken, unsure, like a final plea before the lights dim." Kamari didn't even blink. It became personal the moment you treated me like less than human, before you knew my name." She turned to the crowd. Her voice softened. "To everyone who witnessed today's failure, thank you for your patience and for not looking away." The weight of that statement settled like dust on every shoulder. Her gaze found the young woman still holding her phone. Kamari nodded once. "Your courage didn't go unnoticed." Kamari returned to her vehicle. There was no victory lap, no speech, no final stare. She just got in and drove off, quietly, powerfully. The damage had been done, but so had the healing. The block didn't return to normal. It couldn't. It had been changed permanently. Should people who abuse their power be forgiven, or should they face the full consequences? Drop your take in the comments. And if this story hit you, like and subscribe for more high-stakes moments like this. 2 days later, the young woman who filmed the entire confrontation stood silently outside the Oakbridge precinct. Her phone buzzed constantly. Shares, likes, retweets, and hashtags all echoing the same name, Captain Kamari Hayes. The clip she recorded had gone viral, but what it captured wasn't just injustice, it was the quiet dismantling of it. When the precinct doors opened and Kamari emerged in full dress blues, her stride as composed as ever, the woman stepped forward hesitantly. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't know people like you existed." Kamari smiled, gentle but firm. "You do now, and one day," she added with quiet conviction, "someone will say that to you." The video had reached over 17 million views in 48 hours. National outlets replayed the clip, freeze-framing the moment Kamari raised her badge and shattered the illusion of authority based on assumption. Reform groups praised her restraint. Retired officers praised her poise. One viral headline read, "She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard." The conversation had begun to shift, not just about racism in policing, but about the type of leadership needed to dismantle it from within. At a press conference the following week, Kamari stood behind a podium with a row of microphones, the department seal gleaming behind her. "Respect shouldn't be conditional," she said calmly. "Everyone deserves it, regardless of how they look, where they live, or how quietly they carry themselves. Power without restraint isn't strength. It's insecurity in disguise." The room was silent, not from indifference, but from awe. Later, that month, Kamari sat with a group of local youth at a community roundtable. A 12-year-old boy leaned forward and asked, "How did you not get mad?" She met his gaze and replied, "I've learned that you don't need to raise your voice to raise your value. If you're in a place where no one sees you, stay steady, stay true. You don't need permission to be powerful, just the patience to wait for the right moment." 30 days after the incident, Kamari visited a coffee shop across town. She wore plain clothes again, no badge, no blazer. As she walked toward the counter, an officer by the door stood, nodded, and said, "Good morning, ma'am." No hesitation, no questions, just respect. The shift had begun, not just in policy, but in perspective. When asked by a journalist what legacy she hoped to leave, Kamari's answer was simple. "Sometimes the smallest shifts become the biggest legacies. I don't need to be remembered loudly. I just need the system to listen quietly. That's how change holds." If this story reminded you that dignity belongs to everyone, not just the powerful, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone. Who needs to hear that message? What lesson stood out most to you? Let us know in the comments.